Emma Carter had lost everything. At 24 years old, she was drowning in debt, sleeping in a tiny apartment she could barely afford, and surviving on instant noodles and hope. Hope was the only thing she had left. 3 months earlier, her boyfriend of 4 years had convinced her to invest everything she owned into a business venture. Every dollar, every savings account, every dream. Then he disappeared, along with the money, leaving Emma bankrupt, alone, and completely shattered. The worst part, she had no family to turn to, no parents, no siblings, no safety net. Emma had grown up in an orphanage. She had spent her entire life fighting for every little thing she had. And now she was back at the bottom. Again. The eviction notice sitting on her kitchen counter made that painfully clear. 7 days. That was all the time she had left. 7 days before she lost her apartment too. Her phone suddenly rang. Ryan. Emma immediately answered. Ryan Matthews was one of the few good things left in her life. They had been friends since childhood. They met at the orphanage when they were both teenagers. Ryan had always been there. Always. Please tell me you found a job, Emma said. There was a brief silence. Then Ryan laughed. Actually, Emma sat upright. What? I think I did. Hope exploded inside her chest. Ryan, don't joke with me. I'm serious. Emma's heart pounded. Where? Ryan hesitated, then sighed. You might hate this. Emma frowned. Why? The company belongs to my best friend. Okay. Ryan laughed bitterly. The problem is that he's an absolute nightmare. Emma blinked. What? Trust me. Alexander Knight is the most arrogant, rude, impossible man I've ever met. Emma groaned. Great. I'm serious. How bad can he be? Ryan actually laughed. Emma, people cry after meetings with him. Oh, yeah. She buried her face in her hands. But a job was a job, and right now she couldn't afford standards. Set up the interview. The next morning, Emma stood outside Knight Enterprises. The building was enormous, glass, steel, power. Everything about it screamed money, the type of money she could never imagine having. She adjusted her cheap blazer nervously, then walked inside. The receptionist immediately directed her to the top floor, the CEO's office. Emma swallowed. Suddenly this felt terrifying. The elevator doors opened. A secretary escorted her inside. And then Emma met Alexander Knight. The man didn't even look up when she entered. He continued reading documents, ignoring her completely. 1 minute passed, then 2, then 3. Emma stood awkwardly, waiting. Finally, Alexander looked up. Dark eyes, sharp jawline, expensive suit, dangerously handsome. Unfortunately, his personality ruined all of it. You look nervous. Emma blinked. Excuse me. His gaze swept over her clothes, cold, judgmental. Relax. A pause. I'm not going to fire you. Another pause. You don't even work here yet. Emma immediately disliked him. Alexander noticed and smirked. Interesting. Most people were afraid of him. This woman looked annoyed. What qualifications do you have? Emma handed over her resume. Alexander glanced at it, then laughed, actually laughed. Emma's face burned. Something funny? Your experience. What about it? It's average. Emma clenched her jaw. I wasn't aware I was applying to become president. The secretary nearly choked. Alexander stared at her. Slowly. Carefully. For the first time all morning. He looked interested. 30 minutes later, Emma left the office. Employed. Confused. And slightly angry. Because Alexander Knight had spent the entire interview insulting her. Yet somehow hired her anyway. She didn't understand it. You got the job? Unfortunately. Ryan laughed. Already hate him. With every cell in my body. Ryan smiled. But something sad flashed through his eyes, something Emma missed. Because Ryan had been in love with her for years, and every day it became harder to hide. The following weeks were hell, pure hell. Alexander assigned Emma impossible tasks, impossible deadlines, impossible expectations. Nothing she did seemed good enough. Every morning brought new criticism. Every afternoon brought new humiliation. Every evening ended with exhaustion. Yet Emma refused to quit. She needed the paycheck, and Alexander slowly it is something. No matter how hard he pushed, she never broke. One night, Emma stayed late finishing reports. The office was empty, silent. She finally completed the work around midnight. Exhausted, she gathered her belongings, then accidentally left behind a small notebook, a simple blue notebook, her diary, the place where she wrote everything she could never tell anyone, her fears, her memories, her loneliness, her pain. Emma didn't realize it was missing until the next morning, and by then, Alexander had already found it. He hadn't meant to read it, at first, but the notebook opened when he picked it up, and one sentence caught his attention. I miss having someone who loves me enough to stay. Without thinking, he kept reading, page after page, story after story. The orphanage, the betrayal, the bankruptcy, the nights she cried herself to sleep, the loneliness, the fear, the hopelessness, and suddenly, for the first time, Alexander Knight saw Emma Carter, not an employee, not an annoyance, a human being, a broken one, just like him. When he finally looked up from the notebook, the office felt strangely quiet because something had changed, something neither of them saw coming. Alexander Knight had started caring, and caring was the beginning of everything. The next morning felt different. Emma noticed it immediately. Not because Alexander Knight was suddenly kind. That would have been too shocking. No, he was still cold, still intimidating, still impossible. But something had changed. Something small, something subtle, and Emma couldn't figure out what it was. You're late. Alexander's voice cut through the office. Emma glanced at the clock. 8:59 a.m. She frowned. I'm early. Alexander looked at the clock, then back at her. Silence. Emma narrowed her eyes. Did you seriously call me in here just to say that? A strange look crossed his face. Almost amusement, almost. Get back to work. Emma stared, then walked away, confused. Alexander watched her leave, and hated himself, because every time he looked at her now, he remembered the notebook, the sentence that refused to leave his head. I miss having someone who loves me enough to stay. Over the following days, Emma noticed more strange things. The impossible workload became manageable. The brutal deadlines disappeared. Alexander stopped publicly criticizing her, and twice, he defended her during matings. The second teammate nearly gave everyone a heart attack. One of the managers blamed Emma for a mistake. Alexander immediately shut him down. It wasn't her fault. The room fell silent. The manager looked stunned. Emma looked even more stunned. Alexander simply continued the meeting, as if nothing unusual had happened. But everyone noticed, especially Emma. Meanwhile, Ryan noticed too. And he didn't like it at all. Something's different. Emma sat across from him in a small cafe. What? Alexander. She rolled her eyes. Don't tell me we're discussing him. Ryan forced a smile. He isn't bothering you anymore. Emma paused because it was true. Not completely, but mostly. I guess not. Ryan looked away. Something twisted painfully inside his chest, because he knew Alexander, and Alexander never changed for anyone. Never. One rainy evening, Emma stayed late again. Most of the building was empty. The storm outside rattled the windows. She finally packed her things around 10 p.m., only to discover she had forgotten her umbrella. Perfect, she sighed. The rain was pouring, absolutely pouring. Emma prepared to make a run for it. Then a voice stopped her. Take this. She turned. Alexander stood behind her, holding an umbrella. Emma blinked. What? Take it? She stared suspiciously. Are you dying? Alexander looked offended. I'm trying to help. That's even more suspicious. For a second, he laughed. Actually laughed, a real laugh. The sound surprised both of them. Emma found herself staring, because when Alexander smiled, really smiled, he looked completely different, dangerously different. Their eyes met. Neither looked away. The air shifted. Neither understood why. But both felt it. A strange pull. Silent. Powerful. The following week, Emma got sick. She tried hiding it, failed miserably. By noon, she looked pale. By 2 p.m., she could barely stand. By 3 p.m., she fainted. The entire office panicked. Alexander arrived first. He caught her before she hit the floor. Emma! Her eyes fluttered open, then closed again. The next thing she remembered was waking up in a hospital, confused, disoriented, and finding Alexander asleep beside her bed. Emma froze. What? The CEO, the terrifying CEO, was sleeping in a chair. Her movement woke him. His eyes immediately opened. You're awake. Emma stared. Why are you here? Alexander looked away, almost embarrassed. You collapsed. So? Silence. I wanted to make sure you were okay. Emma forgot how to breathe. The realization hit harder than she expected. Alexander stood abruptly, awkward, uncomfortable, like caring was something he didn't know how to do. Get some rest. Then he left. Before she could answer, before she could stop him, before he revealed how much she had started mattering. Days later, Emma was back at work, and things became even more dangerous, not because Alexander was rude, because he wasn't, not anymore. The danger was that she was beginning to see the man underneath, the man nobody else saw, the lonely man, the wounded man, the man who stayed at hospitals, the man who remembered her favorite coffee order, the man who secretly left food on her desk whenever she skipped lunch, the man who pretended not to care, while caring far too much. And Emma was beginning to fall. Hard. One evening they became trapped together in an elevator. The power briefly failed, the lights went out, darkness swallowed everything. Emma immediately froze. Her breathing quickened, too fast, too uneven. Alexander noticed instantly. Emma? No response. Emma? A whisper. I'm fine. She wasn't. Years earlier, she'd been trapped inside a storage room at the orphanage, locked inside for hours. The memory never left. Alexander moved closer. Hey. Silence. Look at me. I can't. Why? Her voice trembled. I don't like small spaces. Understanding flashed across his face. Without thinking, he reached for her hand. Emma froze. Their fingers touched, then intertwined, and suddenly the darkness didn't feel quite as terrifying. Alexander squeezed, gently. I'm here. 3 simple words, nothing more. Yet somehow, they meant everything. When the elevator finally opened, neither immediately let go, neither wanted to, and that scared them both, especially Ryan, because later that night, he saw them standing together, smiling, looking at each other in a way friends didn't, in a way co-workers definitely didn't. And for the first time, Ryan realized he might already be too late, because Emma's heart was beginning to belong to someone else, and that someone was his best friend. Emma couldn't stop thinking about Alexander, and she hated that. She hated that Alexander Knight had somehow found a permanent place inside her thoughts. The arrogant CEO, the impossible man. It made no sense, none. Yet every time her phone buzzed, a small part of her hoped it was him. Across the city, Alexander wasn't doing much better either. He sat alone in his office long after everyone had gone home. His laptop remained open, untouched, because his attention wasn't on work. It was on the photograph sitting on his desk, a security camera image from 3 days ago. Emma laughing with one of the receptionists. Alexander stared at it, then immediately hated himself. What was wrong with him? He never thought about women like this. Never. Yet somehow, Emma had become the exception. The following morning, Emma arrived carrying 2 cups of coffee, one for herself, one for Ryan. She turned a corner and collided directly into Alexander. Coffee splashed everywhere, mostly on him. The hallway froze. Employees stopped walking. Someone gasped. Emma's soul practically left her body. Oh my God. Alexander looked down at his expensive shirt, then at her. Silence. Deadly silence. Emma prepared for death. Instead, Alexander sighed. Are you hurt? Emma blinked. What? The coffee, he pointed. It splashed on your hand. The entire office stared. Emma stared. Alexander stared. Because even he hadn't expected those words to come out. Later that day, Emma received a package, no name, no note. Inside was a brand new laptop. Her eyes widened. The model was expensive. Very expensive. She immediately marched into Alexander's office. He was the only one on her mind to have done such, and her instincts was always right. What is this? Alexander barely looked up. A laptop. I know that. Then why are you asking? Emma narrowed her eyes. You bought this? No. You did? No. You absolutely did. Alexander finally looked up. A tiny smile appeared. Maybe. Emma stared. Then something unexpected happened. She smiled too, and for a moment, neither looked away. Unfortunately, Ryan saw everything. The smiles, the stolen glances, the growing connection. And every day it hurt more, because Emma had no idea. No idea how long he'd loved her. How many years he'd waited. How many times he'd almost confessed. Only to lose his courage. And now Alexander was taking her away. A week later, the company hosted a charity gala. Every employee was invited. Emma almost didn't attend, until Alexander personally ordered her to. You need a social life. She crossed her arms. You sound 80 years old. Alexander smirked. Be there at 7. At exactly 7 o'clock. Emma entered the ballroom, and the entire room turned. She wore a simple black dress. Nothing extravagant. Nothing flashy. Yet somehow, she looked breathtaking. Alexander forgot how to breathe. For several seconds he simply stared, unable to look away. Ryan noticed, and jealousy twisted inside him like a knife. Throughout the evening, Alexander couldn't stop watching her. Neither could Ryan, but there was a difference. Emma noticed Alexander. She didn't notice Ryan. Not anymore. Near midnight, Emma stepped outside onto the balcony. The city lights sparkled below. The cool air felt wonderful. Then a familiar voice spoke behind her. You look beautiful. Her heart immediately betrayed her. Alexander, of course. She turned slowly. His gaze never left her. You've been avoiding me. Alexander's voice was low. Emma loggered softly. No. You have? Maybe. Why? The answer sat on the tip of her tongue. Because I'm falling for you. Instead, she said, you scare me. Alexander froze. The honesty surprised him. Why? Emma looked away. Because every time I tell myself I hate you. A pause. You do something that makes it impossible. Alexander's heartbeat thundered. Slowly. He stepped closer, then closer, then closer, until barely any space remained between them. Emma could feel her pulse racing, could hear it, could almost see it. Emma. Her name sounded different coming from him, softer, more intimate. She swallowed. Yes? Alexander reached up, brushed a strand of hair from her face. The touch was gentle, painfully gentle, and that was her undoing, because this wasn't the cruel ICO anymore. This was just Alexander, a man looking at her as though she was the only person in the world. Neither knew who moved first. Maybe both. Maybe neither. But suddenly, his lips found hers, softly, carefully, as though giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. The kiss deepened, slow, tender, electric. Everything disappeared. The city, the gala, the world. There was only him, only her, only this. When they finally pulled apart, neither spoke, neither could. Emma's cheeks burned. Alexander looked equally affected, which somehow made her smile. Then, a voice shattered everything. Emma! Both turned. Ryan stood in the balcony doorway, frozen, heartbroken, destroying, because he had seen everything, every second, every moment, every kiss. And in that instant, something inside him broke. Emma immediately stepped back. Ryan, but he was already leaving, already walking away, already disappearing. Later that night, Ryan sat alone in his apartment. The city lights glowed through the windows. His phone rested beside him, a photograph of Emma displayed on the screen, the same photograph he had carried for years, the same smile he had fallen in love with, the same woman he had just lost. A tear rolled down his cheek. Then another, then another. Slowly, his sadness became anger, and anger became something darker, something dangerous, something obsessive, because Ryan wasn't ready to let her go. Not now, not ever. And somewhere deep inside, a terrible decision had already begun forming, one that would change all of their lives forever. Ryan didn't sleep, not that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the same thing. Emma and Alexander, kissing, smiling, choosing each other. For years he had loved her. For years he had protected her, helped her, supported her, saved her. When her ex ruined her life, Ryan was there. When she lost everything, Ryan was there. When she had nobody, Ryan was there. And somehow, Alexander Knight walked into her life and took her heart in a matter of weeks. It wasn't fair, it wasn't right, and Ryan couldn't accept it. Meanwhile, Emma had never been happier. The kiss changed everything. Not immediately, not officially, but everything felt different now. The tension, the smiles, the way Alexander looked at her, the way she looked at him. Everyone noticed too, especially Ryan. One evening, Emma stayed late again. By choice this time. Alexander sat across from her reviewing contracts. The office was quiet, comfortable, peaceful. Neither spoke much. Being together felt natural, easy, safe. You should go home. Alexander finally looked up. Emma smiled. So should you. I'm the CEO. And, he smirked, and I make the rules. Emma rolled her eyes. You sound ridiculous. Alexander laughed, actually laughed. The sound warmed something inside her. A few minutes later, the light suddenly went out. The entire floor went dark. Emma jumped. Alexander immediately stood. Don't move. I'm not scared. A pause. I'm slightly scared. He smiled, then used his phone flashlight. The soft glow illuminated her face, and for several seconds, he simply stared. Emma felt her heartbeat quicken. Why are you looking at me like that? Alexander stepped closer, slowly, carefully, like approaching something precious, because that's exactly what she had become. Because you're beautiful. The words escaped before he could stop them. Then Emma smiled, and Alexander knew he was finished, completely, hopelessly, in love, across the city. Ryan sat in his car, watching, waiting, obsessing. He had followed Emma after work, then again the next day, then again after that. At first he told himself it was concern, protection, friendship. But deep down, he knew the truth. This wasn't friendship anymore. It was possession. A week later, Alexander finally took Emma on their first real date. A private rooftop restaurant overlooking the city. Candles, music, stars, everything perfect. Emma laughed at something he said, and Alexander found himself staring again. You do that a lot. What? Stare. His lips twitched. I know. Emma shook her head. Why? Alexander answered honestly. Because I like looking at you. Her cheeks turned red, and Alexander thought he might die from how adorable she looked, for the first time in a very long time. He allowed himself to imagine a future, one with Emma in it, one where he wasn't alone anymore, one where he finally had something worth protecting. Unfortunately, someone else was imagining a future too, Ryan, and in his version, Alexander wasn't part of it. 3 days later, everything changed. Emma left work around 6. The streets were busy, crowded, normal. She never noticed the black van, never noticed the men watching, never noticed the trap closing around her. 1 second, she was walking home. The next, a hand covered her mouth. Darkness. When Emma woke up, she was lying on a bed, confused, disoriented, terrified. The room was beautiful, luxurious, expensive, large windows, elegant furniture, fresh flowers, everything perfect. Except one thing. The door was locked. Emma's heart stopped. No. The door opened, and Ryan walked inside. For several seconds, she couldn't process it, couldn't understand it, wouldn't understand it. Ryan? He smiled, relieved, happy, almost emotional. You're awake? Emma stared. Fear slowly crawled through her chest. Ryan? His smile widened. I knew you'd understand eventually. Her blood turned cold. What did you do? Ryan sat beside her, far too close, far too comfortable. I brought you somewhere safe. Emma immediately backed away. No. His expression darkened. Only slightly, but enough. Emma. No. The single word shattered whatever fantasy he had created. I'm not safe with you. Ryan looked hurt. Genuinely hurt. After everything I've done for you. Emma couldn't believe what she was hearing. You kidnapped me. Silence. Then Ryan said something that terrified her. I did it because I love you. The room suddenly felt smaller, much smaller, because love wasn't supposed to sound like that. And meanwhile, Alexander was losing his mind. 24 hours, no Emma, no calls, no messages, no trace. The police found nothing. Security footage revealed nothing. Alexander hadn't slept, hadn't eaten, hadn't stopped searching. Then finally, one of his investigators found something, a vehicle, a warehouse, a witness, a lead. Alexander immediately went there. And what he discovered made his blood freeze. Ryan. Everything pointed toward Ryan. No, Alexander whispered. Not Ryan. Anyone but Ryan, his closest friend, his only friend. But the evidence kept coming. Phone records, rental documents, payments, locations. The truth became impossible to ignore. Ryan had taken her. The betrayal hit almost as hard as the fear. Because Alexander loved Emma, and Ryan knew it, which meant this wasn't just kidnapping, it was war, back at the hideout. Ryan sat beside Emma, watching her sleep, watching her breathe, watching her exist. His obsession had become complete. In his mind, she already belonged to him, and anyone who tried taking her away, including Alexander, would pay the price. Because Ryan had already hired men, already made plans, already started moving pieces, and Alexander Knight had no idea that an assassin was already watching him, waiting, following, preparing. The real nightmare was only beginning. Alexander had never hated anyone before. Not truly. Not like this. Not until Ryan. Every lead, every piece of evidence pointed to the same horrifying truth. His best friend had kidnapped Emma, the woman they both loved. Alexander stood inside the warehouse his investigators had discovered. Abandoned. Empty. Cold. Emma had been there. Recently. But Ryan had already moved her. Alexander slammed his fist against the wall. Too late. Again. Boss. One of his men approached, holding a phone. We found one of Ryan's people. Alexander turned instantly. What? The man nodded. One of the drivers. 10 minutes later, Alexander entered a secure room. A frightened man sat tied to a chair, sweating, shaking, terrified. Alexander pulled out a chair, sat down, silent. The man swallowed nervously. Where is she? Alexander asked. The driver looked away. Wrong move. Alexander leaned forward, his voice calm, dangerously calm. Where is Emma? The man broke almost immediately, because everyone knew Alexander Knight, and everyone knew what happened when something of his is wrongfully taken. Mounting cabin, the man blurted out. Alexander froze. What? Rian Moved her yesterday. A pause. She's still there? Alexander was already standing, already moving, already leaving, because Emma was finally within reach. Meanwhile, Emma sat by a window inside the cabin, watching the rain, counting the days, praying. Ryan entered carrying food. Again. Emma refused to look at him. The rejection hurt him more every day. I brought dinner. Silence. Emma. Nothing. Finally, she looked at him, and what Ryan saw broke his heart. Not fear, not hatred, pity. She pitied him. Ryan. Her voice was soft. You need help. The words hit harder than a slap, because deep down, he knew she was right. But obsession never listens to reason. I'm doing this because I love you. Emma shook her head, tears filling her eyes. No. A pause. This isn't love. Another pause. Love doesn't lock people away. Ryan looked away, unable to answer, because somewhere inside him, a tiny part still remembered the man he used to be. The good man, the friend, the protector. Unfortunately, that man was disappearing. Fast. Hours later, headlights appeared outside. Ryan immediately stood. Someone was coming. His heart sank, because he already knew who it was. Alexander. Of course it was Alexander, the man who always ruined everything. The man Emma loved. The man Ryan couldn't compete with. Outside, several black SUVs surrounded the property. Alexander stepped out first. Rain poured from the sky. His eyes never left the cabin. Bring her back to me, he whispered. Then everything exploded. Gunfire. Ryan had prepared for this. Armed men emerged from the trees. Bullets flew. Alexander's security team returned fire. The forest became a battlefield. Chaos. Screams. Violence. Inside the cabin, Emma heard everything. Her heart nearly stopped. Alexander. Ryan grabbed her arm. We're leaving. No. His grip tightened. We're leaving. Emma pulled away. I don't belong to you. The words shattered him completely. For a moment, Ryan looked genuinely broken. Then something snapped. Something final. Something dangerous. If I can't have you. Emma's blood turned cold. Before he could say another word, the door suddenly exploded open. Bang! Alexander. Rain-soaked, breathing hard, eyes burning. For 1 second, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then Emma ran. Straight toward him. Alexander caught her instantly, holding her tightly, like letting go might kill him. You're okay. His voice broke. Actually broke. And Emma realized just how terrified he'd been. I thought I lost you. Tears filled his eyes. Ryan watched everything. Every hug, every touch, every look. And jealousy consumed him. One final time. Slowly, he raised a gun. Directly at Alexander. Emma saw it first. Alexander! Emma screamed. But then, before Ryan could make a move, a gunshot echoed through the doorway. Bang! Ryan froze. Shock filled his face. His weapon slipped from his fingers. Police officers flooded the cabin, weapons raised. Drop it! Ryan looked around, realizing too late. It was over. Finally over. One of the thugs captured pointed directly at him. He paid us. Silence. Ryan went pale. The thug continued. He hired us. Another pause. Everything was his idea. Police moved immediately. Handcuffs. Arrest. No escape. Ryan didn't resist. Didn't fight. Didn't run. Because he knew. The game was finished. As officers led him away, he looked at Emma one final time. The woman he had loved. The woman he had lost. I'm sorry, Emma cried. Because despite everything, part of her still remembered the friend he used to be. The man before obsession destroyed him. Then he disappeared into the darkness. Weeks later, life slowly returned to normal. Ryan received a lengthy prison sentence. Every thug testified. Every crime was exposed. Every lie came into the light. Justice finally won. And for the first time in months, Emma felt free. One evening, Alexander brought her to the rooftop where they had shared their first real date. The city sparkled below. The wind moved gently through her hair. Alexander stared at her, the same way he always did, like she was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. Stop staring, Emma laughed. I can't. She rolled her eyes. You've become ridiculous. I know. A pause. Emma. His voice softened. And suddenly her heartbeat quickened, because she knew. She just knew. Alexander reached into his pocket, then slowly dropped to one knee. Emma covered her mouth, instantly crying. Alexander, I spent most of my life alone. His voice trembled slightly. But then you walked into my office. A small smile, and ruined everything. Emma laughed through tears. Alexander smiled too. Will you keep ruining my life forever? The ring sparkled beneath the city lights, and Emma's answer came without hesitation. Yes. Alexander slid the ring onto her finger, then kissed her slowly, tenderly, passionately. The city disappeared. The world disappeared. Everything disappeared. There was only them, two people who found love after losing everything. And this time, nobody would take it away. The end.